Ladies and gentlemen, these are the 5 mastering tricks that the pros use to make the masters sound loud, clear, and very heavy. I personally use them in my projects, on my clients' projects, so let me share them with you, since I believe you'll find them very useful. When mastering, we like that analog sound, that analog touch to the project. However, if you're not working with analog gear like myself, like other engineers, or in a hybrid system like I specifically do, you can use plugins such as this tape saturation. It can really give that warmth and that presence to your masters. However, we are not going to talk about how to use this tape specifically and the settings, because I want to show an advanced tip that you can do and that really does wonders using this specific tape by Softtube. Apparently, you can go this right side here, you can click, and then this plugin will open another window. Now what you can do here, you have different effects right here and you have the dry and wet knob. However, I want you to focus on this high frequency trim and the crosstalk. High frequency trim can help you to bring back the high frequencies that the tape naturally takes away while affecting your audio. That's how the analog tape works. This tape emulates that. Now when I play the audio and I start increasing this knob, you'll notice how I can bring back the high frequencies on this specific mix.
Just a little obedience and a lot of blessings. Raising up my hands to my teacher, but I don't got a question. Studying the Bible, I've been on a roll when God is testing me. I got rest in peace, but told my flesh you gotta rest in peace. Daily bread and living water, that's...
This sounds very nice. Now when it comes to the crosstalk, this specific knob will bring back the low frequencies that you can also find attenuated by the tape itself. So let's test that knob out.
Just a little obedience and a lot of blessings. Raising up my hands to my teacher, but I don't got a question. Studying the Bible, I've been on a roll when God is testing me. I got rest in peace.
And the key here is finding the very sweet spot, because I can't give any strict values for this. The only goal is to find the sweet spot between these two knobs. Now when it comes to the second tip, this one is using ProMB. However, ProMB is a multi-band compressor. However, we are going to use it for expansion and compression. Let's see how that works. So I have ProMB here and I used my own preset, vocal de-esser. However, I added one more band right here, which is for the vocal range. Now here I'm using expansion with positive range, of course, and default times. I'm only tweaking the threshold right here since I want to determine the right amount of expansion on the vocal range I personally want. Let's hear how that sounds.
Just a little obedience and a lot of blessings. Raising up my hands to my teacher, but I don't got a question. Studying the Bible, I've been on a roll when God is testing me. I got rest in peace, but told my flesh you gotta rest in peace.
Again, you might not be able to hear that much of a difference. However, mastering is really about the details, not significant difference. Keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. The next tip is using one of my favorite units. It's my personal dream to have an analog unit of this, but it's very hard to find. Now let's jump into Shadow Hell's mastering compressor. I'm going to only use this unit to just run my audio through. The way I'm going to do that, I'm barely going to trigger compression right here, basically 0.1 dB, and I'm only going to choose between different modes to determine which one sounds best to me. Nickel is the most transparent one, iron has slightly more saturation, and the steel offers the greatest amount of saturation, especially for the low end. Let's hear how this sounds and if you actually can notice the difference.
Just a little obedience and a lot of blessings. Raising up my hands to my teacher, but I don't got a question. Studying the Bible, I've been on a roll when God is testing me. I got rest in peace, but told my flesh you gotta rest in peace. Daily bread and living water, that's my favorite recipe. Had somebody tell me that I really changed and I agree. People telling me I'm worthless and they hating on me, but I must have some value if both God and Satan want me. I'm just being...
For the next trick, I have one of my all-time favorite analog equalizers, and it's the Chandler Limited Curve Bender. You probably heard about that plugin. However, let's see how I personally like using it to make the top end very open, very bright, and to also bring more focus to the vocals. The way I'm doing that, I'm switching from regular to mid-side processing and I'm unlinking the channel so I can control each side separately. Now the first thing I did is I brightened the top end right here for about 1 dB, which sounded good to me in this case, but I went for 1.5 dB boost on the side, which made the stereo field even wider and more open. Now what I did when it comes to the vocals, all I did here is I amplified the vocals for 0.5 dB on the mid channel, so this is the mono information. However, I narrowed the same range for about the same value, or I can even go to -1, which will bring more attention to those mono information that I actually want coming from the vocals. And it's very important thing to gain match right here, so you don't get any loudness differences. This is a very nice trick, especially for mastering purposes.
Just a little obedience and a lot of blessings. Raising up my hands to my teacher, but I don't got a question. Studying the Bible, I've been on a roll when God is testing me. I got rest in peace, but told my flesh, you gotta rest in peace. Daily bread and live.
As the final trick, I want to show you what to do instead of turning on true peak limiting on Pro 2, which is well known for reducing distortion, which is actually a good thing. However, it's also reducing the impact on the transients themselves, which is not a good thing at all. Let's see what you can do instead. So instead of turning on true peak limiting, here's what you can do. You can turn the true peak limiting off. You can choose oversampling. Now you can go for 8x, you can go for 16x, depending on what your computer or laptop can handle, since this will actually prevent any distortion and any artifacts that you could possibly get by using this limiter. And you can also set the output at least -0.3. I like to go for 0.5, sometimes I go for -1 dB. It depends from master to master. And now you're able to basically push your audio and get that loudness that you're looking for. So that would be it, ladies and gentlemen, for this video. And I hope you like these tricks that I showed you, because they're actually used by the pros, and I personally use them in my projects, and they showed some great results. My clients are satisfied, I'm personally satisfied with how my masters sound. So hopefully you'll be satisfied with your masters too. See you again in a new video.